Welcome back to another Campfire Talk episode. I'm Robbie. I'm together with Ani today.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to hear you again.
And today we are joined by Dani from the Artivist Network to talk a little bit about artivism and what that is and how we can use that in our climate actions. Thank you for giving us your time, Dani, and to come and record together. Do you want to say a few words about yourself to start things off and about the Artivist Network of which you're a part of?
Yeah, for sure. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Dani. I'm with the Artivist Network, and my role is kind of like everybody does everything in our organization, but I'm kind of like in charge of production for actions and also one of the coordinators. So it's like kind of my background really comes from originally like a mural painter, street artist, which like really got me involved in arts activism, and also kind of like a multimedia artist by now, because I've learned so much from other artists that now I kind of feel that my artistic spectrum has really broadened. So I'm kind of like excited to work on anything and like learn during the process. I'm like working a lot on creating installations, still painting murals, and kind of looking for creative strategy together with like grassroots groups, larger mobilizations, NGOs, and kind of like every kind of different group, like also kind of really focusing on how to kind of create the bridge between artists and activists. But I'm really focusing at the moment on how to kind of, I wouldn't say train, because I feel that maybe I don't have the exact knowledge for that, but I'm really trying to involve artists in understanding like how art's role in a movement can be crucial and how much it can support it. So it's really about empowering artists, and this is something with especially like being based in Budapest in Hungary. I think it's something where like people need to be guided into understanding empowerment or like kind of realizing empowerment. So I'm really kind of excited to work on these kind of things, to work together with artists and then kind of introduce them to different movements and involve them in different actions. So yeah, the Artivist Network is like, we're a collective, we're a growing team. We're working on quite a lot of different projects, but we're like a core team of 4 people. Out of this, like some of us are based in Central Eastern Europe, in Southern Europe, and then in Southeast Asia. Specifically, one of our core team members is in Malaysia. So yeah, I'm quite happy to say that we're global because we're working on a lot of different campaigns and a lot of different actions with a lot of different plans, both in Europe and in Southeast Asia. Our group is now, I would say the people who are actually like involved with us on like a regular basis is 12 people. And we're kind of split into teams, working groups. And yeah, we do like basically like creative strategy for lots of different kind of concepts. We're really kind of a project or like a collective which doesn't have their own messaging. We have our own values, of course, and we all have like different struggles or fights or causes which are important to us, but we're usually invited by movements to work on specific projects. So it's a really broad spectrum. And that's why it's like really interesting also to kind of be part of this, because we get to know things from people on the ground all over the world and then like train them, support them, give them tools to be able to create powerful actions and hopefully just have like a bigger outreach on media. And yeah, like basically just make everything creatively more exciting and visually interesting.
Can I ask if all these 4 people, like the nucleus of the Artivist Network, are they coming from artistic point of view, or more they were like activists and you met with them because you have a bit of a background more into arts, if I understood well? So I was wondering if you all are kind of like artists that comes towards climate issues or like activist issues, or it's just like a mix?
No, I mean, I'm definitely the least educated out of the group. Yeah, I'm like the person who didn't study it that much. But basically the 4 people in our group, it's like everybody has an artistic background. So it's like somebody who does theater is also, their like profession is communication, social media. And then other people are like really great at painting, great at performances. Like we're artists, but we're facilitators as well. So I think that everybody comes from a different kind of movement, but in the end, we're all part of one movement.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Just to say to our listeners, every time I meet Dani somewhere, it's a big event, usually an activist event, either like a COP, either is a mobilization against a specific gas project or a gathering between activists. And he's always like surrounded by these like stencils and paints and like lots of craft materials. And I don't know, I always saw you are the whole group of Artivist Network building from scratch, like a big place for art. And maybe what it's nice to be underlined for our listeners is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're using spaces that are activist based and you're instrumentalizing the art in favor of the cause you are fighting against, or like the movement fights against, and not the other way around. Like you don't take, for example, a protest and you make an exposition about the protest, kind of like instrumentalizing the activism into art. You know what I mean? Are you having these kind of conversations in Artivist Network, or how do you position yourself into this?
It's a huge question always of like, we're never artistic enough, but we're like never activists enough. Maybe I can like go back to how we started. Basically, at the beginning, the Artivist Network was really kind of like artists setting up space for people to come and create, which like we would facilitate, and we would be there as artists to like provide tools and also like teach people how to create art. Like me coming from a street art background, teaching people how to make stencils, how to lay out your banner, how to, you know, like what to look at, like what sort of colors to use, and so on. And this meant that we were not making the art for the movement, we were making art together with the movement. We would go to like large mobilizations, climate camps, different places, and we would apply for grants and self-manage and check in that, hey, like we would like to come to set up this space. And then like at some point, people started to invite us to do these. And then I think that now it's like really much more like one part of the team is like really going to like meetings, kind of representing creative strategy, making sure that groups talk about this at the beginning and not at the end. There's also like kind of geographical things to take into consideration. Like Spain has a really evolved arts activist movement, but in Southeast Asia, arts is not really taken as like a priority when talking about protests. Representing this and kind of putting it in the front, that visual and creative strategy is important. So we're like doing both.
Then if we already talked about this a bit, but just to like hone it in and describe in more detail exactly what, in your understanding, what would you consider artivism, and why it's important, as you said, to think creatively about how to transmit your message, also in a visually creative way.
I kind of feel that it's not needed to explain why visual appearance is important. The reason I say it is because it was really important to talk about it in the past, because people didn't look at it as a priority. They would like do all this work on organizing an action, do all the logistics, do all the things, and then like be at an action with like zero visuals, or like, you know, something which you can see that somebody had like 5 minutes to do and it looks bad. This is what the world will pick up, because it's like, you know, a 300 people action and nobody else sees it except for cameras. This is how important art and activism is, because otherwise you don't have a strong message to send it out. Artivism can be, you know, like someone writing something politically poetic on a wall with like zero talent, but still like changing a space and making people think. Even one sticker in a good place can sometimes make a message more seen than like a big action. Art has always been used to send messages, to raise awareness, and it's always been a really important tool to kind of like amplify messages. So many new things are appearing, and I think that like, you know, from small disruptive creative performances in public space towards creative campaigns pressuring institutions to cut ties with fossil fuel companies. Basically, I think that everything which can be in a public space is arts activism. Also like social media and design, or like, you know, anything which is online is also arts activism, but we tend to look at arts activism more in like, how is art used in a public space and can be used as a disruptive tool.
Mm-hmm. You say that you're also teaching people or the movement, if they are like, okay, let's organize a protest, and then maybe you also think about how our messages for that protest should look like, and maybe check some examples from the Artivist Network. So it's not only a simple slogan, it can come to be absorbed by many senses. So it's not only auditive, the slogan that you shout, it can be also visual, it can be also maybe if you add some smells to it, or if you can add some colors to it to trigger some kind of emotions, it really creates that narrative to be more strong and have more impact. This is what I'm hearing from you when you say that you help to put into the strategy the art. I mean, imagine these kind of approaches to what you want to transmit and how you transmit it. Is it something that I understood correctly?
Definitely. We're really like looking at art as an open source tool. Our like important part of messaging is that you don't need to be an artist to create good visuals. As I mentioned at the beginning, we were there to kind of like guide activists into making things which look cool. By now, we have a bunch of toolkits. We just have a lot of material on how to create things. And then like some of these are really affordable, accessible. And now we're also kind of looking into something which costs more, but is something which can actually be more beneficial for some people who are into like more techie activism with more expensive equipment and stuff like that. We're like really looking at it as like something which people should be able to access without having an artist on board.
We will also share your website in the description of this episode, because indeed you have a few toolkits and workshops that people can check on your website.
Yeah, of course, you'll share all the materials and resources and everything. Yeah, I was just thinking that for me, I think the best kind of how to represent something is not just a visual way to represent an information, but it's actually something that connects two dots. It works kind of like a metaphor. I'm now thinking about, for example, in one of our recent episodes, we talk about how a report came out that says that we have recently crossed the first climate tipping point, which is for the warm water coral reefs. And basically, they are on a path to dying, all of these coral reefs. And it's one thing to say all this information, but if you have an action where you like have a funeral procession and maybe have like a coffin, or you have like a grief ritual, then that's a very, very strong way of also transmitting the information, but also connecting the dots that this is not just some kind of info, but this has like a social importance, and it's like a relative that is dying, right? Because the corals are also part of this earth system together with us. And I think these kind of creative actions for me are the best when they also make some kind of connection.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing that like, so the report came out on the coral reefs going extinct or like, disappearing. This is probably 100-pager of like, why it's happening, what caused this, who caused this, what other reports to check, and like the people of the world, society does not read 100-page or like 50-page or even 10-page reports.
These are more like 1,000-page usually, so it's...
Yeah, okay, I'm even like downsizing it. So like what I see as the really useful and important aim of arts activism is to take the information from that, create it into something digestible, and put it out in the public for people to at least notice that this is happening and for it to trigger understanding. And this is when like people can like see a mural, see a bus ad change, see something and look into why this is happening. This is the whole thing that like we work together with movements to amplify all of the really important work they do. And I think that that's really the like job of arts in the climate and human rights movement.
So do you want to give us some examples of creative actions that you've been a part of in the last years? In the how-to sections, we will talk about some basic things like this ad replacement stuff that people who are just starting out, they can do. But maybe if you want to give us some examples from these kind of big actions and stuff to show the potential of this kind of artivist approach.
Yes. I mean, obviously now that you say it, it's like I'm blanking on it.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's like so many different things. Just now we were at the COP in Brazil and we did like so many actions. We were a gigantic factory for like 2.5 weeks. Well, I mean, more than that, but yeah, like just constantly making and just like pushing out actions, several actions every day. We did a lot of actions. For example, like fossil fuel lobbyists present at COP. We work together with corporate accountability and the Kick Big Polluters Out campaign, which is like 450 organizations who are basically trying to get fossil fuel lobbyists kicked out from COP. And then for that, for example, we made this huge corporate puppet with like a burning globe as a head.
Nice.
Which was also like really fun to create, but also the whole like genuinity of, a puppet walking through COP and then like being part of this action more theatrically the people trying to like kick out this big puppet. And then like this is kind of like evolving puppetry, theater, and like a lot of really, really good speakers who are part of this campaign. Then like there was another one which was similar against fossil fuel lobbyists, which was like you wouldn't invite a cigarette company to a clean shit. Sorry, I actually forgot what it was.
Maybe some cancer conference or something.
Something like this. Oh my God, it's so ridiculous that I forget our own actions, but it was like 30. The whole point was like we made this like huge inflatable cigarette. That was the main visual of the action. So the people were like carrying around the big inflatable cigarette. And then we also did like an action against Adani, for which we created this like huge piece of coal, which we were holding. And we also have these really beautiful fire dresses, which were made by basically at COP. We have this like Artivists in Residence project where like we were just now 16 people all together, people coming from all parts of the world, different kinds of artists. And some of them created these fire and smoke dresses, which have like a really, really dramatic presence. And then these people would like walk through COP. It's just kind of like really symbolic and really emotional.
Were these part of like a big, procession, a protest? Or were these like individual actions in different places?
So basically what we do at COP is we have like our own production space. We have an artist in residence program. And then we still have consultations with the organizations who, one, reach out to us, two, who we've had like a long working relationship with. And we brainstorm their action ideas and workshop them so that we can distribute these between artists to work on during COP. So this kind of means we have like 30 organizations. Each of them are doing an action, mostly inside or in front of the COP venue. And then like we help with like the admins. So we help register their action inside the COP. The COP has like a complicated process to have actions. And then we basically support them with everything from logistics to production, communication, documentation, and so on. And there was also the big march. We also work together with other bigger groups. It's like really wide variety from like 5 people actions to hundreds of people to thousands of people. Kind of wondering, did I give good enough examples of the actions we've done in the past? Can I mention 2 more?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we worked together with Greenpeace Bulgaria. It was really exciting. We created this inflatable life ring for them, which was 12 meters wide. It was massive. It was used at the Black Sea, part of one of their campaigns. It was really exciting. We were basically sewing for 6 days, like 16 hours every day. We like used 5 kilometers of thread to be able to make it. And like the installation was like, to carry it, it was something like 110 kilograms. It was like a really big inflatable installation. It was really, really interesting to work on it. And the pictures look amazing. You can find it on their website. And then during the like pre-COP in Bonn in June, we worked together with the Palestinian groups who are attending the UN Spaces. And together we found a lot of images which are like really emotional from what's happening in Palestine. And we took details from these pictures, which means like you're not showing, for example, the image of a lot of people kind of like holding their pots, basically people dying from hunger. But we only took like the detail of like the hands holding the pots and like we enlarged these images. And we made this big photo stand in front of the UN. We also just used like the eyes from images, which like the eyes can often explain the situation people are in the same way, just as like a whole image would. We really think that using this tool of like photography and enlarging them for public spaces is really powerful. It just works really well.
You'll try to put some links to images from all the actions. I think it's best if listeners, you also look at the description of the episode and look at the images while you are listening to it. I guess that's the way to have a bigger impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult also trying to explain these things. It's like...
The whole point of it is that it's visual. So.
Yeah, it's just like trying to explain everything which is visual in words. And then it's like, it doesn't sound that cool when you tell it, but then you like see the picture, you're like, okay, what the hell?
Dani, which is your favorite tool to work with? Maybe if we give some more examples of tools. I don't know, cutters.
I don't know. For me, my favorite tool kind of depends. Like each action needs a different kind of tactic. At COP, I made like a giant puppet, an inflatable cigarette, a big piece of coal, painted like 60 banners, 500 flags, painted 2 murals, and like all of them are like my favorite mediums.
So practically for listeners, just you have to imagine a lot of cutters and brushes and materials like textiles and colors and having a lot of fun, and then go with all that in the public somewhere in front of a building of maybe COP building or a fossil fuel company, and you just present your work. Practically, I feel like if we can envision that art space that you usually create when you go to these kind of events, maybe it just helps a bit the listeners to imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and we're like super evolved technologically. We have like 2 stencil cutting machines and stuff, like leaf blowers. We have so many cool things. We have like sewing machines. We're much less of like the first basis of like brushes, scissors, and cutters. Like now we're like, it feels like you really walk into a factory. So yeah, it's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really proper production space. I would say that what I really enjoyed doing, especially at COP, I didn't paint murals for quite a long time because it was always like not the strategical thing to do. But I had the chance to paint together with the Fearless Collective and with Shak Koyok, who's our like Malaysian indigenous artists in residence. And it was just really empowering. Painting large scale is so great, so freeing. So yeah, I think that personally, I still feel that like within public art, street art and murals is something which I feel really sure that I can like visualize what I want to.
Maybe with this, we should maybe try to close this section off. These actions sound great, but maybe for someone who is just starting out, you have like 3 people and you've just figured out that you want to like dedicate your life to fighting against climate change. But it's maybe intimidating to think about these very like advanced actions, large scale, and that takes resources. And then maybe to ask you like this, what kind of first steps, what kinds of actions would you suggest for people who are just starting out? Because as you said, you're also thinking about how to make actions low cost. And you also have a lot of tools and whatever infrastructure, which people can contact you and you can help them out.
Yeah, definitely. I also really suggest to everyone that you can listen to this podcast, but then after that, go and have a look at like the toolkits which we have. We worked a lot on creating like these like 50-page toolkits, which when you sit down and like think of like an action you want to do, you can really have a look and see the which action fits, which type of action you could do, or what is like something which you've been thinking about and want to see what the logistics for it is. So yeah, it can be really useful. We did say that we would do 2 tactics, but maybe I will start with like maybe the easiest one possible, just because it's winter. I mean, depending on where you're listening from, but it's winter in a lot of places and it gets dark really early. Maybe you're like, you just decided that you're casually dedicating your life to solving the climate crisis.
Casually, yeah.
But you still have a day job. And for a lot of people, you go to work when it's dark and you leave work when it's dark. So it's really important to bring some light into the world. And for this, I think it's something which is really easily accessible, really low cost, and you can kind of recycle it as much as you want, is creating light banners. And for this, you basically just need to buy fairy lights, these like LED, like, these Christmas style fairy lights, which you use like the AA batteries for, which you can buy the chargeable ones as well. So it's kind of like a one-time purchase, really cheap to buy. And then you need to get cardboard. The way we were doing it is like, if you have 3 people and you have a slogan of 3 words, then you need to get a piece of cardboard which is wide enough to fit 1 word. And then it looks cool if the background is painted black, because you use white or warm white light. You paint the cardboard black and then you sketch on your letters on the banner and you just use tape, like tape on the lights. And it looks really beautiful. It's really easy. And it's kind of like when you finish work at 4 p.m. and you need to go home, by the time you make it to your action location, it's going to be dark. This is like a really powerful, really beautiful way to catch attention, to have like a nice action. It will look beautiful on pictures as well. That's really easy. And also if you have a look at like our Toxic Bonds tactics manual, and you can find it in one of the sections. It's really easy. So I would really suggest, especially in winter, this is like something fun. You really don't need to put a lot of time or energy into it. You don't really need to paint anything, not artistically paint at least. So yeah, I think that this is a great early season tactic to use for making cool light banners.
Thanks for this great idea. This sounds really great with the light banners. I haven't done that, and I think That may be a great action to do this winter with my group. Before we move on to describe two very specific actions in the how-to section, do you want, Dani, to tell people like how they can contact you and where they can find all of the resources and tools that you have with the Artivist Network?
Sure. So we have a website, which is artivistnetwork.org. We need to update it a bit more, but there's a lot of really useful materials there. And then from there, you can just go to YouTube and write the Artivist Network. You will find a bunch of like tutorial videos and webinars by inspiring arts activists. And also we have an Instagram account, which is also the Artivist Network, where we upload a lot of like examples of the actions which we do. And you'll know if we're like doing anything close to you. And yeah, also time for advertisement. And listen to radishradio.org because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there as well, which is one of our side projects together with Activists.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dani. It was really nice to talk with you, and looking forward to see you in an art space somewhere.
Definitely. Can't wait.
If you like our work, or at least think it's useful, help us spread the word by smashing that like button, like it's the face of a fossil fuel executive or something. That's cringe, but please subscribe anyway.